Welcome to another 5-minute religious education recap video. We're on the exam board Eduqas. We are studying a world faith with emphasis on Judaism, and we're looking at Jewish beliefs. In particular, we're going to look at the nature of God today and that God is a lawgiver and judge. Now, although the exam board expects to know all 5 of these headings, I've done a video on the previous 2, 1 and creator. Today, we're just going to focus on lawgiver and judge. So start off with God as lawgiver then. One of the core Jewish beliefs is that God gave the Torah, the Jewish holy book, to Moses on Mount Sinai. Now the word Torah literally means law. And although there are 613 mitzvot or laws given by God to the Jewish people, probably the most famous you're familiar with are the 10 commandments given to Moses on that Mount Sinai. Now Maimonides, famous rabbi, says the Torah was given to Moses by God, and the Torah is God's law and cannot be changed. So here's a good bit of evidence to back up this idea of the importance of laws and why Jews follow them. So within Judaism, there are actually 613 commandments, laws, mitzvot. If you pause this video and have a look through this, you can be able to identify kind of some of the ones, but I'll just identify a few key ones. For example, dietary laws, what Jews can and can't eat. That includes the kosher food laws, the animals that are fit or proper and ones that are considered unclean. The treatment of non-Jews, so for example, Jews should always show love to the stranger, people who are non-Jewish. The idea that the Torah, well, Jews have an obligation within the Torah to learn it and to teach it to others. But also, teachings on God. There is only one God, that God is eternal. So do take some time to have a look through some of those. I mean, one of the ones that stands out to me, and I always remember, is that in wars, Jews are prevented from destroying fruit trees in battle. That's a mitzvah. Probably comes back to Genesis, when the Garden of Eden was made, and God made those fruit or those seed-bearing trees and plants for people to enjoy. So there's a duty to care for that part of creation. However, we're going to focus on the 10 commandments. Now, the 10 commandments are also known as the Decalogue. It comes to the word dec, meaning 10. Log comes to the word logos, which means words. So the 10 words or the 10 sayings. Now, these can be split into 2 headings. The first 4 commandments link to how to worship God, but the final 6 commandments are how to treat others, and we'll go through this now. So first of all, the first commandment is there's only one God, so Jews are monotheists. Secondly, don't make false idols, so don't let anything take your attention away from God. Also, don't misuse the name of God, and make sure that God's name remains sacred and holy, only ever use it in a serious and respectful way. And finally, keep the Sabbath holy. God created a day of rest in Genesis. Jews have an obligation to also rest from Friday evening through to Saturday evening. It reminds them that reminds Jews that God is the creator, and they should spend time developing the relationships with family and with God. Now, the next 6. Honour your father and do not murder. This is identifying how you need to respect your elders and respect life. So it links to the sanctity of life. All life is sacred and holy. When we look at the next few, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not lie. People shouldn't commit sinful actions. These separate us from God and they separate us from each other. So there's an obligation there not to commit sinful actions. And finally, do not covet links into this idea that sinful thoughts can lead to sinful actions, so they should be avoided to help you try and live a good life. Now, there's a bit of a difference here between Orthodox and Reform. So the exam board, they'd like to have an awareness of Reform and Orthodox Jews. Now, Reform, they're really relaxed about applying kind of a lot of teachings and ideas. So they might try and adapt it to the times they live in. So with the mitzvot, they'll look to kind of, maybe not take them as strictly or seriously as others. Orthodox, however, they're very strict about applying the Torah to their lives, and they see the mitzvot as, a direct duty from God, and they have to follow them. So put this into action to explain. Take the Sabbath, for example. Resting on the Sabbath means no work. Well, an Orthodox Jew will follow that to the letter. They won't drive, they won't do any work if they're going to the synagogue or anything like that. Whereas a Reform might say, do you know what, the synagogue's like an hour away. I'm going to get in my car so I can drive and I can worship God. So you can kind of see the kind of contrast between Reform and Orthodox there. Now finally, moving on for God as judge. Jews believe that God, he not only gave these laws to follow, but he will judge behaviour. He's omniscient, so he knows everything. And we're going to look at 2 examples of how God judges. The first one is Noah's flood, or Noah's ark. Now, in the story of Noah and the flood, God judges the behaviours of humans to be so bad that he punishes the earth, and he wants to basically remove the evil that is in the world. And this shows that God will punish those who do not live good lives, and therefore Jews have a duty to follow and obey God's laws. And in Genesis it says, the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race was, and he says, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created. So God literally starting again and punishing people for being bad. Secondly, there's a festival in Judaism called Rosh Hashanah. Now, this is a festival which remembers the creation of the world and how God makes everything. And Jews believe that God almost brings out these scales to weigh people's good deeds and their bad deeds against each other. And he gives people 10 days to make up for their bad actions. And then at Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, he sees if you've made up for those bad actions or not. Now, the whole thing about this is kind of showing God as that judge. It's shown that he's omnipotent because he decides a Jew's fate. He's omniscient because he knows when you've done good and bad, but also he's omnibenevolent because he's fair and he provides a just reward or punishment. And this is why Maimonides says God will reward good and punish evil. Go down the checklist here, see how you've done, see if you can link up some of these key terms to that kind of aim. If you can do that, you've been successful. If you want to push yourself a little bit further, go for some of these example questions. Thanks so much for your time.